The air in first-century Judea was thick with expectation. Roman soldiers patrolled the streets. This was a land under Roman occupation. The Jewish people longed for freedom. They hoped for a Messiah, a promised deliverer. Jerusalem, the holy city, was especially tense during Passover. This great festival drew many pilgrims. They came from all over the world. Religious leaders watched everything closely. They were anxious about any potential unrest. The atmosphere was charged, a mix of devotion and simmering discontent. It was into this world that Jesus of Nazareth had come. Jesus' ministry had stirred the region profoundly. He taught with an unusual authority. He spoke of God's kingdom in new ways. Many ordinary people were drawn to him. He performed signs and wonders, healing the sick. These actions brought hope to many. However, his teachings often challenged the established religious leaders. They saw his growing influence as a threat. His claims about his own identity were deeply unsettling to them. They began to view him with suspicion and fear. They started to consider how they might silence him. His message was undeniably radical for its time. Jesus seemed to understand what was coming. He gathered his closest disciples for a final meal. This meal is now known as the Last Supper. During this time, he spoke plainly about his impending suffering. He told them one of them would betray him. He took bread and wine, simple elements. He gave them new, powerful meanings. The bread was his body to be broken. The wine was his blood to be poured out. He established a new covenant with these actions. He also washed his disciples' feet, a lesson in humility and service. This meal was a deeply significant moment, full of sorrow and profound teaching. After the meal, Jesus went to a garden. It was called Gethsemane. He went there to pray. He asked Peter, James, and John to stay awake with him, but they were overcome by sleep. Jesus was in great distress. He prayed with intense agony, knowing what lay ahead. Soon the quiet of the garden was broken. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, arrived. He was not alone. He came with a group of temple guards and Roman soldiers. Judas identified Jesus with a kiss, a sign of betrayal. Jesus was then arrested. His disciples, overcome with fear, scattered into the night. Following his arrest, Jesus was taken to the house of Caiaphas. Caiaphas held the powerful position of high priest. The Sanhedrin, the Jewish Supreme Council, quickly assembled. This was an emergency nighttime session. They were determined to find Jesus guilty. They brought forward various individuals to testify against him. However, their testimonies were often contradictory and false. The leaders accused Jesus of blasphemy. They claimed he had threatened to destroy the temple. Meanwhile, outside in the courtyard, Peter, one of Jesus' closest followers, denied knowing him 3 times. This fulfilled what Jesus had predicted earlier that evening. As morning light broke, Jesus faced another trial. He was brought before Pontius Pilate. Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea. Only a Roman governor had the authority to order an execution. The Jewish leaders presented their case. They now emphasized political charges, not just religious ones. They claimed Jesus was a threat to Roman rule. Pilate questioned Jesus. He seemed to find no substantial reason to condemn him. It was a Passover custom to release one prisoner. Pilate offered the crowd a choice: Jesus or Barabbas. Barabbas was known as a rebel and murderer. The crowd, influenced by the chief priests, shouted for Barabbas to be released. They demanded that Jesus be crucified. Pilate, though perhaps reluctant, gave in to the crowd's demand. He ordered Jesus to be scourged. This was a brutal Roman punishment. Soldiers took Jesus and flogged him severely. They then engaged in cruel mockery. They pressed a crown woven from thorny branches onto his head. They draped a purple robe over his bleeding shoulders, mocking him as a king. They spat on him and struck him repeatedly. This entire ordeal was designed to inflict maximum pain and humiliation. Jesus endured this suffering with a quiet dignity that seemed to unnerve some. It was a horrifying display of human cruelty. Weakened and bleeding, Jesus was then forced to carry his own cross. This was the standard Roman practice for those condemned to crucifixion. He began the painful journey through the streets of Jerusalem. The destination was a place called Golgotha. The name means the place of the skull. The heavy wooden beam pressed down on his torn shoulders. He stumbled under its weight. The soldiers compelled a man from the crowd, Simon of Cyrene, to help carry the cross. A large group of people followed. Some were hostile, some were curious. A group of women wept openly, mourning his fate. The journey was slow and filled with agony. When they reached Golgotha, the Roman soldiers proceeded with the execution. They laid Jesus on the wooden cross. They drove large nails through his hands and feet, fixing him to the timber. This method of execution was notoriously cruel. It was designed to cause a slow and agonizing death. Two other men, convicted criminals, were crucified alongside him. One was placed on his right side, the other on his left. The soldiers then divided Jesus' garments among themselves. They cast lots for his seamless tunic. This fulfilled an ancient prophecy. The scene was one of public shame and immense suffering. A mixed crowd had gathered to watch the spectacle. Among them were those who had followed Jesus closely. His mother Mary stood near the cross. Her heart was undoubtedly broken. John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was there with her. Mary Magdalene and other devoted women who had supported his ministry were also present. They watched in profound grief and helplessness. Roman soldiers maintained order, indifferent to the personal tragedy unfolding. Some religious leaders who had sought his death were also there. They mocked Jesus, challenging him to save himself if he truly was the Messiah, the Son of God. Their words were filled with scorn. From the cross, Jesus spoke several significant phrases. These are often called his 7 last words. He prayed for his executioners, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." This showed incredible compassion. He offered hope to one of the criminals crucified with him. He promised, "Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." He also made provision for his mother. He entrusted her care to the disciple John. At one point he cried out a line from Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This expressed the depth of his desolation. His final utterance before dying was, "It is finished." As Jesus breathed his last, extraordinary events occurred. Around midday, a profound darkness fell over the whole land. This darkness lasted for about 3 hours. It was an ominous and unnatural phenomenon. When Jesus died, the earth trembled. An earthquake shook the ground. Inside the temple in Jerusalem, the great curtain that separated the holy place from the most holy place was torn in two from top to bottom. This symbolized that access to God was now open to all. A Roman centurion, a hardened soldier overseeing the crucifixion, witnessed these events. He was deeply moved and declared, "Truly this man was the Son of God." The immediate aftermath of Jesus' death was one of despair for his followers. They were scattered, frightened, and utterly bewildered. Their hopes had been brutally extinguished. The man they believed to be the Messiah, the King, had been executed as a criminal. They had left everything to follow him. Now their leader was gone. Fear of the authorities who had condemned Jesus was also very real. They likely hid, uncertain of their own safety. The future that had seemed so bright with Jesus now looked impossibly dark and empty. Their grief was immense. Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the Sanhedrin, was a secret disciple of Jesus. He bravely went to Pontius Pilate. He asked for permission to take Jesus' body for burial. Pilate granted his request. Nicodemus, another leader who had previously visited Jesus by night, assisted Joseph. Together they carefully took Jesus' body down from the cross. They prepared it for burial according to Jewish customs. They wrapped the body in linen cloths with aromatic spices. They then laid Jesus in a new tomb. This tomb was carved out of rock and had never been used before. A large, heavy stone was rolled against the entrance to seal it. All this was done quickly as the Sabbath was approaching. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ is the very heart of the Christian faith. For Christians, this event is not simply a tragic execution, it is understood as a purposeful act of God. They believe Jesus, as the Son of God, died as a sacrifice. His death atoned for the sins of humanity. It opened a way for reconciliation between God and people. The cross demonstrates the depth of God's love for the world. It signifies the establishment of a new covenant, a new relationship with God. This single event has profoundly shaped history. It continues to inspire and transform lives across cultures and centuries. The story, however, does not end with Jesus' death and burial. On the third day after the crucifixion, something astonishing happened. Some women followers went to the tomb early in the morning. They intended to complete the burial rites. They found the massive stone rolled away from the entrance. The tomb was empty. Angels appeared and announced that Jesus was not there. He had risen from the dead, just as he had foretold. Later, Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene and then to his other disciples. The resurrection is the ultimate confirmation of Jesus' divine nature and his victory over sin and death. It is the cornerstone of Christian hope and the promise of eternal life.